Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today I will analyze the case of David Kaneko. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the crime, then offer my analysis. Kenichi David Kaneko was born on November 21, 1939, in Salina, Utah. He went by the name David. After high school, David went to Brigham Young University, where he earned both a bachelor's degree and a master's degree in biology. For the next several years, David served in the Air Force. He became romantically involved with a woman named Lorraine. In 1969, the couple married in an LDS temple in Idaho Falls, Idaho. They made their home in a double-wide trailer on Salem Road in Rexburg, Idaho. The land the trailer was on was owned by family members. David worked for the Idaho National Engineering and Environmental Laboratory. On June 23, 1970, Lorraine had a daughter named Laura. In 1988, Laura graduated from high school. She then attended a local college as a pre-med student. She graduated from college as valedictorian, but her parents, David and Lorraine, would not let her give a speech at graduation. Now moving to the timeline of the crime. Starting in 1991, Lorraine and Laura became reclusive. They would spend all their time in the double-wide trailer on Salem Road, hiding from the rest of the world. In 1995, the mother and daughter completely isolated from family members and the LDS Church. All contact was lost. The catalyst for this drastic step was Laura being asked to go on a missionary trip to Japan. Lorraine warned family members to stay away from Laura and not to bother her anymore. In June 1997, family members became concerned because Lorraine and Laura remained isolated. They contacted the police and requested a welfare check on the women. When the police arrived at the double-wide trailer, Lorraine and Laura appeared to be agitated. They told the police that they were living a lifestyle of their choosing, and nothing was wrong. The authorities departed after confirming that the women had electricity, running water, and food. The women were both adults and free to make their own decisions. In April 2001, family members once again contacted the police, asking for a welfare check. Lorraine and Laura told the authorities they did not want to be bothered. The police left without doing anything. On June 19, 2004, the police visited the trailer for the third time after receiving a report that David was no longer working and he was staying in a motel in Idaho Falls. By this point, no one had seen Lorraine and Laura since the last welfare check over 3 years ago. Black plastic was covering all the windows of the trailer, so there was no way to see inside. The police contacted David at the motel where he was staying and told him they were going to execute a search warrant on his trailer. He responded by saying his wife and daughter were not going to answer the door for the officers. He would meet the police there and let them in. The police decided not to wait for David. They broke the front door of the trailer, but ran into a problem immediately. There was so much clutter in the trailer, they had trouble pushing the door all the way open. When they were finally able to make entry, the police noticed that the trailer had stacks of junk and garbage everywhere, as if nothing had ever been thrown away. Only a narrow path allowed movement in the trailer. There was also a strong chemical odor. The police searched the bedrooms. When they opened the door to the last bedroom, they were hit with an overwhelming odor of decomposition. In the bedroom, they found the bodies of 58-year-old Lorraine and 33-year-old Laura on a bed next to each other. The bodies were covered by blankets. The police could tell right away that Laura had been dead for quite some time. For the most part, all that was left of her body was her skeleton. It looked like Lorraine had died more recently. There was no obvious cause of death for either woman. In the bedroom with the bodies, there were fans, dead flies, and hundreds of air fresheners. It was an unconventional and terrifying style of decor, somewhere between post-apocalyptic hoarder and Bath and Body Works crime scene. When David arrived at the trailer, he became agitated with the authorities. He was not upset about the dead bodies they discovered, rather that the police were on his property. Investigators believed that David must have committed some type of crime, but they had difficulty identifying any law that he violated. They held him on a material witness warrant, but he posted bond right away. Eventually, from multiple sources of information, including the results of an autopsy, investigators concluded that Lorraine died on February 9, 2003. She had been dead for over a year. Her cause of death was probably starvation. Laura died in May or June of 2001, about 3 years before she was found. Her cause of death was dehydration, starvation, or illness. Investigators believe that the women were not murdered. Rather, symptoms of mental illness caused them to deprive themselves of food. The women had a delusion that Laura was destined to marry a great LDS apostle. David told the authorities that his wife and daughter were worried about derailing the prophecy. Lorraine would not let him see Laura. Both women remained isolated in that bedroom. In 2001, David found Laura dead after breaking into the bedroom. Lorraine was furious with him, insisting that he had jeopardized the prophecy. She believed that the prophecy could still be fulfilled if her body was placed next to Laura after she died. When Lorraine died, David positioned her body as requested, believing that the deaths of his wife and daughter were part of the plan. He was afraid to violate their wishes because that would demonstrate a lack of faith. It seemed pretty clear to investigators that all three individuals, Lorraine, Laura, and David, had suffered from mental health symptoms. Despite this, they wanted to hold David criminally responsible. On April 10, 2006, David was charged with 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter, 2 counts of abandoning a vulnerable adult, and 1 count of desertion and non-support of a spouse. In August 2007, David pleaded guilty on 2 counts of involuntary manslaughter under an Alford plea. So he maintained his innocence, but conceded the state could probably get a conviction based on the evidence. He told the judge, quote, "I miss my family, I miss my wife and daughter. I am sorry for what happened and the tragic ending it had," unquote. David received a sentence of 4 to 6 years in prison and 5 years of probation. After spending 6 months in a mental health treatment facility, he was released. He returned to the same trailer where his wife and daughter died. In 2014, David asked the court to clear his criminal record. The court told him that he would not be eligible until 2018 because he must wait 5 years from when his probation ended, which was 2013. David Kaneko was never able to get his record cleared. On June 3, 2016, he died from cancer at the age of 76. Now moving to my analysis. Mental health symptoms played a significant part in this tragedy. As a teenager, Laura became depressed and developed delusions. It's not exactly clear what disorder she had, but it was something that featured psychosis, perhaps schizophrenia, schizoaffective disorder, or a major mood disorder with psychotic features, like major depressive disorder or bipolar disorder. She became paranoid, felt the world was a hostile place, and isolated herself. In 1994, Laura developed a religious delusion, which featured content from her LDS belief system. She believed that she had received a divine revelation indicating it was her destiny to marry an acquaintance of hers who was currently on an LDS missionary trip. According to this prophecy, this man was to lead the second coming of Jesus Christ. When Laura married him, she would join her husband in this quest and be exalted as a great spiritual leader. Instead of being mortified by Laura's ridiculous claims, Lorraine started to share her daughter's beliefs and also became psychotic. The man who Laura thought she would marry came back from his missionary trip and married someone else. This could have been the end of the delusion, but it wasn't. Neither woman was discouraged. They believed that this was all part of the plan. In a journal, Laura documented her belief that she would be married in about a year because God had told her progress was happening. The women started suffering additional delusional beliefs in support of the central delusion about the prophecy. In order to fulfill the prophecy, they stopped eating to cleanse themselves of evil. This is when they completely isolated themselves in the bedroom of the double-wide trailer. Over the next few years, the women remained isolated and paranoid. They kept trash bags full of used toilet paper, collected empty bags of candy, and stored flattened empty cereal boxes in containers as if they were being filed away. They wrote dates on the boxes indicating when they finished eating the contents. Time-stamped garbage wasn't the only consequence of the delusional beliefs. Lorraine took extensive notes where she recorded unimportant information in a high level of detail. For example, on one day, Lorraine recorded these entries. 6:12 a.m., Lorraine saw a pickup truck on the west side of the house. The engine was noisy, rattling and rumbling. 6:15 a.m., the pickup truck moved to the north. 6:25 a.m., Lorraine noted that her daughter thought she could hear a pickup truck in the distance. Other journal entries recorded what programs were playing on National Public Radio and how many times the heater had turned on and off. Lorraine indicated that she kept the notes to keep her mind occupied so evil could not get in. David appeared to become delusional as well. He did not actively take part in what Lorraine and Laura were doing, but he was afraid to go against their wishes. For example, he did not report their behavior or their deaths to the authorities. What do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. This appeared to be a case of shared psychotic disorder, which is also known as folie à deux, or madness of two. Shared psychotic disorder is no longer in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, the DSM. It last appeared in the DSM-4-TR, but it is still considered to be a real construct. Now it falls under delusional disorder, other specified type. This condition has been referred to by many names over the years, including double insanity, psychosis of association, simultaneous psychosis, imposed psychosis, induced psychosis, and communicated psychosis. Usually the condition involves two people, the primary partner and the secondary partner. 90% of the time, these two people are family members, as was the case with Lorraine and Laura. What happens here is that a disorder involving psychosis, like schizophrenia or delusional disorder, develops in the primary partner. Eventually, the secondary partner is affected by the primary partner's behavior and develops psychosis as well. Essentially, the psychosis is contagious. The secondary partner would be the one with the shared psychotic disorder. The symptom manifestation is typically less intense with the secondary partner. For instance, this partner may experience hallucinations that are less frequent and have a shorter duration. Much of the time, the theme of the shared delusion is mystical or persecutory. So the religious delusion initially experienced by Laura and later adopted by Lorraine would be consistent with shared psychotic disorder. The state of Idaho viewed David as an offender in this case because he failed to act to protect the women. But this is a problematic assertion when talking about involuntary manslaughter. In order to be guilty, two conditions must be satisfied. David had a clear duty to act, and his failure to act was grossly negligent. It is difficult to make this case considering how the authorities visited the trailer on 2 occasions before the discovery of the bodies, yet did nothing. Was their failure to act grossly negligent? It's also worth considering that if David had resisted Lorraine's wishes, it's possible that he could have been in more danger. Shared psychotic disorder has an association with homicidal behavior, especially in cases where the delusional individuals believe that somebody is trying to interfere with the purpose of the delusion or destabilize their relationship, like break them apart. David was placed in a very difficult situation and probably became pulled into the delusion. He accepted and obeyed the logic of the prophecy, believing that he needed to keep the bodies isolated in order to fulfill this prophecy. One notable indicator of David's break from reality is how he was able to tolerate the horrible odor of decomposing bodies in the trailer. He eventually moved out of the trailer, but he was in there for a long time with that horrible smell. The ability to tolerate these odors is referred to as disgust insensitivity. It has a strong association with psychosis. Law enforcement in this case repeatedly stated how they simply could not believe anyone could tolerate that smell. The odor emanating from the trailer was considered nothing short of traumatizing. Maybe David could tolerate it because he was disconnected from reality. I'm not convinced that David deserved to be convicted of a crime in this case. What he really needed was mental health counseling. Those are my thoughts on the case of David Kaneko. Thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you soon. Just a reminder that I have over 300 pre-release videos on my Patreon account. These videos are of the same quality as videos I release to the public. When I put a video in pre-release status, it usually remains there for several months, if not a year. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video.